What if one sentence could destroy you completely? Sarah Collins was invisible, serving $1,000 champagne to Manhattan billionaires, until Marcus Thornfield, arrogant CEO, brutally humiliated her. This is why you'll always be poor, while his own card got declined. That night of tears and panic, fired and desperate, Sarah discovered documents that could destroy him. Millions in fraud, absolute power in her hands. But what she found next, hidden in an abandoned wing of Thornfield's skyscraper, changed everything. A forgotten mother, dying alone, a 30-year secret, revenge or redemption. The poor waitress was about to teach the greatest lesson about true wealth. Stay until the end and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. And if you like it, please hit the like button. The crystal chandeliers of the Golden Spire cast dancing shadows across marble floors so polished they reflected the faces of Manhattan's elite like mirrors of privilege. Sarah Collins moved between tables with practiced grace, her black uniform crisp despite the humidity of the kitchen, her smile professionally fixed, even as her feet screamed in protest after 7 hours standing. "Table 12 needs more champagne," James Chen barked from behind the bar, his eyes never meeting hers. "And for God's sake, Sarah, smile like you mean it. These people tip based on performance." Sarah bit back a response. She needed this job. Emma's speech therapy sessions cost $300 a week, and insurance covered barely half. The hearing aids her 7-year-old daughter needed weren't considered essential by their plan. So Sarah smiled, nodded, and grabbed another bottle of Cristal worth more than her monthly rent. Table 12 was hosting Marcus Thornfield. Everyone knew Marcus Thornfield. His face graced the cover of Forbes, Fortune, and Time. Thornfield Industries had revolutionized sustainable technology, making him a billionaire at 35 and a legend at 45. Tonight, he sat surrounded by other titans of industry, discussing a charity auction benefiting underprivileged children, with the casual detachment of men who'd never known struggle. "The problem with poverty," Thornfield declared, his voice carrying across the private dining room, "is that poor people refuse to think like winners. They're trapped in a scarcity mindset, victimhood mentality." Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she approached with the champagne. She'd heard variations of this speech 1,000 times from 1,000 wealthy men who believed their success was purely merit, never luck, never privilege, never the invisible advantages of starting 20 steps ahead. "Excuse me, gentlemen," she said softly, professionally. "May I refill your glasses?" Thornfield barely glanced at her. "Just leave the bottle. We're capable of pouring our own drinks." His tone wasn't merely dismissive. It carried that particular brand of contempt reserved for service workers, that subtle reminder that she was furniture with a pulse, background noise in the symphony of their importance. Sarah placed the bottle down carefully and turned to leave. "Wait," Thornfield called out. She stopped, turned back. His steel-gray eyes finally focused on her, and she felt the weight of his assessment. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years, sir. 3 years as a waitress." He shook his head slowly, and his companions leaned in, sensing entertainment. "Let me guess. You're putting yourself through college? You're really an actress? A model? Everyone in New York is really something else, aren't they?" Heat crept up Sarah's neck. "I'm a mother, sir. That's what I really am. A mother." He swirled his champagne, the liquid catching light like liquid gold. "Working minimum wage plus tips at, what, 30? You must have made some interesting life choices." "I'm 28, sir." Sarah's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered. "And I work 3 jobs to support my daughter." 3 jobs. Thornfield leaned back, his expression a mixture of fascination and pity that made Sarah's stomach turn. "You know what's fascinating? I work 1 job and make more in a day than you'll make in a lifetime. Do you know why?" Sarah knew she should walk away. Every instinct screamed to turn and leave, but something in his tone, that absolute certainty, that crushing condescension, rooted her in place. "Because I think differently," he continued, gesturing with his glass. "Winners focus on opportunities, losers focus on obstacles. You chose to have a child you couldn't afford. You chose to remain stagnant while others innovate. This," he gestured at her uniform, "is why you'll always be poor. Not luck, not circumstances, choices." The silence that followed was suffocating. Every eye in the room fixed on Sarah, waiting for her response, waiting for the entertainment to continue. "Your bill, sir." Sarah's voice emerged quieter than she intended. Whenever you're ready. She turned away, blinking back tears, her face burning with humiliation. 30 minutes later, Sarah returned with the leather portfolio containing the check, $4,147 for dinner and drinks. Thornfield pulled out a black American Express card without looking, handed it to her with the casual indifference of someone for whom $5,000 meant nothing. Sarah ran the card. Declined. She ran it again. Declined. Her stomach dropped. She returned to the table, leaning close to speak discreetly. "Sir, I'm sorry, but there seems to be an issue with your card. Perhaps another—" "What?" Thornfield's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Your card was declined, sir. It happens sometimes with—" "That's impossible." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against marble. "Do you have any idea who I am? That card has a credit limit higher than you'll earn in your entire pathetic life. I understand, sir, but perhaps— Run it again, properly this time." Sarah's hands shook as she ran the card a third time. The machine beeped its rejection like a death knell. Declined. When she returned to inform him, Thornfield's face had gone crimson. "This is incompetence. Pure incompetence. You probably ran it wrong because you're too stupid to operate basic technology. Sir, I assure you, this is exactly what I'm talking about." His voice rose, drawing attention from every table in the restaurant. "This is why people like you stay poor. You can't even process a simple transaction. Maybe if you'd focused on developing actual skills instead of popping out children you can't afford—" "Mr. Thornfield." James Chen appeared, his face a mask of panic and apology. "Please, sir, allow me to handle this situation. Sarah, step away, now." Sarah backed away, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. She heard Chen's obsequious apologies, watched him comp the entire meal, saw Thornfield storm out with his dignity restored and her worth reduced to nothing. 15 minutes later, Chen called her into his office. "You're fired." The subway ride from Manhattan to the Bronx took 43 minutes, but tonight it felt like hours. Sarah sat wedged between a sleeping businessman and a teenager blasting music through broken headphones, staring at her reflection in the scratched window. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, casting her face in alternating shadow and harsh brightness. "Fired." The word echoed in her mind with each clack of the train wheels against the tracks. 3 years of perfect attendance, of swallowing insults, of smiling through degradation, erased in a single evening because a billionaire's ego was more valuable than her livelihood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria, her neighbor who watched Emma during night shifts. "Emma's asleep. Take your time, mija. You okay?" Sarah typed back. "Coming home soon. Thank you." She couldn't bring herself to write more, to explain that okay was now a foreign concept, a luxury she couldn't afford. The apartment building on 187th Street looked grayer than usual under the streetlights, its brick facade crumbling in places the landlord refused to repair. Sarah climbed 4 flights. The elevator had been broken for 6 months, and unlocked the 3 deadbolts on her door. Inside, Maria sat on the worn couch watching muted television, her weathered face creasing with concern the moment she saw Sarah's expression. "Ay, chica. What happened?" "I lost my job." The words came out flat, emotionless. Sarah felt hollowed out, a shell going through motions. "I need to pay you for tonight. Let me—" "Stop." Maria stood, gripping Sarah's shoulders with surprising strength. "You pay me Tuesday like always. Right now, you need to breathe. When did you last eat?" Sarah couldn't remember. Breakfast? Had there been breakfast? Maria guided her to the kitchen table, pressed her into a chair, and began heating leftover rice and beans. The simple domesticity of it, the clink of the spoon, the smell of cumin and garlic, finally broke through Sarah's shock. The tears came sudden and silent, streaming down her face as Maria wrapped her arms around her from behind. "Let it out, mija. Let it all out." After Maria left, Sarah checked on Emma. Her daughter slept peacefully, her hearing aids on the nightstand beside her, her small chest rising and falling with the deep rhythm of childhood sleep. Sarah brushed a strand of honey-brown hair from Emma's forehead, careful not to wake her. 7 years old. 7 years since Sarah's carefully planned future imploded. She'd been 21, a junior at Columbia studying business administration on a full scholarship, perfect GPA, leadership positions in 3 campus organizations, summer internships at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey. The world had been an open door, and Sarah had been running toward it at full speed. Then she met David Richardson at a networking event. Charming, ambitious, a senior at NYU's Stern School of Business. They dated for 8 months. She got pregnant. He disappeared. Sarah remembered standing in her dorm bathroom, staring at the positive pregnancy test, calculating possibilities. She could still finish school, arrange childcare, work part-time, apply for additional financial aid. It would be difficult, but possible. She was Sarah Collins. She solved problems. She persevered. Then, Emma was born premature, spending 4 weeks in NICU. Then came the diagnosis, moderate to severe hearing loss in both ears. Then came the reality of medical bills, therapy appointments, specialized care needs that couldn't be scheduled around class times or exam periods. Sarah withdrew from Columbia 2 months into her senior year. Now, sitting at her kitchen table at 2 a.m., Sarah pulled out a battered folder from the drawer. Inside were the remnants of her former life. Acceptance letters from Stanford's MBA program, letters of recommendation from professors who'd called her brilliant and destined for greatness, academic awards and honors that meant nothing now. At the bottom was a business plan she'd written for a social entrepreneurship competition. The idea, a consulting firm that helped small businesses in underserved communities develop sustainable growth strategies. She'd won second place, received $5,000 in seed funding, and been featured in the Columbia Business Review. The check had gone to Emma's medical bills. The dream had gone into this drawer. Sarah opened her laptop, a 7-year-old Dell held together with duct tape, and checked her bank account. Balance, $247. 18 rent due in 12 days. $1,350 Emma's therapy session on Thursday. $300 electricity bill overdue. $89. Her other 2 jobs, weekend shifts at a grocery store and Thursday morning office cleaning, brought in barely enough to cover basics. The Golden Spire had been her primary income, the tips from wealthy patrons keeping them afloat. Without it, the mathematics of survival became impossible. Sarah navigated to employment websites, scrolling through listings. Most restaurants wanted references from previous employers. James Chen would never give her a positive reference. She'd be lucky if he didn't actively sabotage her. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but sleep felt impossible. She clicked through job after job. Sales associate, customer service representative, warehouse worker, all paid less than waitressing. None offered the immediate income she desperately needed. At 3:30 a.m., she found a listing. Night cleaning crew needed. Downtown Manhattan office buildings. Immediate start, 18-hour. No experience necessary. $18 an hour was less than she'd made at the Golden Spire with tips, but it was something. Sarah filled out the online application, attached her resume, and hit submit before she could overthink it. Her phone rang at 8:47 a.m., jarring her from 90 minutes of fitful sleep on the couch. Ms. Collins, this is Rita Morales from Apex Cleaning Solutions. We received your application. Can you start tonight? Sarah sat up, her mind foggy. Tonight? We need someone for the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. Thornfield Tower, downtown. The pay is $18 per hour, paid weekly. Background check and drug test required, but we can process those today if you can come to our office at noon. Thornfield Tower, Marcus Thornfield's building. Sarah's first instinct was to refuse, to say she'd rather starve than set foot in any building bearing that man's name. But Emma stirred in the bedroom, coughing softly, and reality crushed idealism like paper. I'll be there at noon, Sarah heard herself say. After the call ended, she sat motionless, staring at nothing. Last night, Marcus Thornfield had stood in a $5,000 suit, surrounded by sycophants, declaring that poor people stayed poor because of their choices. Today, Sarah would clean his toilets because she had no choice at all. The irony tasted like bile. Emma emerged from the bedroom, her hair a tangle, her smile bright despite sleep creases on her cheek. She signed, "Good morning, Mama," with small, careful hands. Sarah signed back, pulling her daughter into a fierce embrace, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. This was why. This little girl who'd been dealt an unfair hand and faced it with more courage than any CEO in a boardroom. This was the choice Sarah made every single day. "How about pancakes for breakfast?" Sarah signed. Emma's eyes lit up. She nodded enthusiastically, bouncing on her toes. As Sarah mixed batter from a box, the cheap kind that needed only water, She made herself a promise. She would take the cleaning job. She would swallow her pride, like she'd swallowed 1,000 insults. She would survive this like she'd survived everything else. But someday, somehow, Marcus Thornfield would understand that poverty wasn't a failure of character. It was a failure of compassion from people exactly like him. Thornfield Tower stood like a gleaming monument to excess in lower Manhattan. 73 floors of steel and glass that reflected the city's lights like a diamond catching fire. Sarah arrived at 9:45 p.m., her new Apex Cleaning Solutions uniform stiff and uncomfortable, a badge clipped to her collar that read, Sarah C. Sanitation Specialist. Sanitation Specialist, a fancy title for someone who scrubbed toilets. Rita Morales, a stocky woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, met her in the service entrance. You'll be on floors 60 through 70. Most executives leave by 8, but sometimes workaholics stay late. You see them, you're invisible. Don't make eye contact. Don't initiate conversation. Understand? Sarah nodded. Invisibility was something she'd mastered long ago. Supply closets on 60. Here's your master key card. Breaks are 30 minutes at 1 a.m. Don't touch anything on the desks except trash. Don't use executive bathrooms. Employee facilities are on 59. Rita handed her a laminated instruction sheet. Questions? Which floor is Mr. Thornfield's office? Rita's expression shifted slightly. 73. Penthouse level. But you won't go there. He has private staff for that floor. Why? Just curious. Sarah forced casualness into her voice. Seeing whose building I'm working in. Rita studied her for a moment longer, then shrugged. Stay focused on your assignment. First night's always hardest. You'll find your rhythm. The service elevator was cramped and smelled of industrial cleaner and old metal. Sarah rode it to the 60th floor, alone with her thoughts and the fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead like captive insects. The executive offices were exactly what she expected. Opulent, soulless, designed to intimidate. Mahogany desks, leather chairs, abstract art worth more than cars. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A view these people probably stopped noticing after the first week. Sarah started in the conference rooms, emptying trash cans filled with catering remnants and printed reports marked confidential that no one bothered shredding. She wiped down tables where deals worth millions had been negotiated over salmon and asparagus. She vacuumed carpets that cost more per square foot than her monthly rent. By midnight, she'd finished 3 floors. Her back ached. Her hands were raw from chemicals. But the mechanical nature of the work was almost meditative. Empty, wipe, vacuum, repeat. No customers to smile at, no insults to absorb. Just silence and solitude. On the 67th floor, Sarah's cartwheel caught on something, jolting her from her rhythm. A file folder had fallen behind a desk, wedged between the wall and a filing cabinet. She knelt to retrieve it, intending to place it back on the desk. The label read, Project Lighthouse, internal only. Sarah shouldn't have opened it. She knew better. But exhaustion and curiosity and some reckless impulse made her flip it open. Inside were financial documents, dense with numbers and corporate language. She'd taken enough accounting courses at Columbia to recognize what she was seeing. Shell companies, offshore accounts, revenue streams labeled with vague descriptions that meant everything and nothing. One page showed a chart comparing reported revenue versus actual revenue for Thornfield Industries' Sustainable Technology Division. The gap between them was $847 million. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was fraud. Massive, systematic fraud. She photographed 3 pages with her phone, her hands shaking, then returned the folder to the desk exactly where it had been. Her mind raced. What was she supposed to do with this information? Who would believe a fired waitress turned cleaning lady over a billionaire CEO? She continued working, but her attention was fractured, her thoughts spinning. At 2:15 a.m., taking a bathroom break on the 69th floor, Sarah heard something unexpected, crying, soft, muffled, coming from somewhere down the hallway. She followed the sound to a door marked Health Services, Executive Wellness Center. The crying grew louder. Sarah tried the handle, unlocked. Inside was a small medical facility, examination rooms, a reception area, cabinets filled with supplies. The crying came from the back. Sarah moved through the space cautiously, her footsteps silent on tile floors. In the last room, she found her. An elderly woman sat in a wheelchair by a window, her thin frame draped in an expensive nightgown, her white hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Tears streamed down her weathered face as she stared at a photograph clutched in trembling hands. "Hello?" Sarah spoke softly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you all right?" The woman looked up, her eyes roomy but still sharp in moments of clarity. "Who are you?" "I'm Sarah. I work here. Cleaning crew. Do you need help?" "Help." The word came out bitter. "I need my son, but he's too important now, too busy saving the world to visit his own mother." She held up the photograph. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, grinning at the camera. "Do you know him?" Sarah stepped closer, looked at the image. Even as a child, Marcus Thornfield had those distinctive gray eyes, that sharp jawline. "That's Marcus Thornfield," Sarah said carefully. "My Marcus." The woman's voice cracked. "I raised him alone. His father left when Marcus was 3, left us with nothing. I worked 2 jobs, waitress during the day, hotel maid at night. Sometimes I'd go 48 hours without sleep to make sure he had food, clothes, tutoring. I sacrificed everything." Sarah's throat tightened. "You were a waitress?" 23 years at a diner in Queens. The Golden Rose, gone now, torn down for condos." She laughed, the sound hollow. "Marcus always hated that I was a waitress. Said it embarrassed him when his fancy school friends asked what his mother did. I told him honest work was nothing to be ashamed of, but he didn't believe me. He wanted more, wanted better." "What's your name?" Sarah asked gently. "Dorothy. Dorothy Thornfield." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Marcus put me here 6 months ago. Said it was for my own good. Executive wellness center with round-the-clock care. Best doctors, best facilities. Everything except what I actually need." "And what do you need?" "Him." The word was barely a whisper. Just him. To visit. To talk. To remember that before he was Marcus Thornfield, billionaire genius, he was just Marcus, my little boy who used to help me count tips and tell me he'd buy me a big house someday. She looked at Sarah with sudden intensity. "Do you have children?" "A daughter. Emma. She's 7. Then you understand. You'd do anything for her. Sacrifice everything. And you'd hope, God, you'd hope that she'd remember. That success wouldn't make her forget where she came from." Dorothy's hands shook harder. "But I was wrong. I raised him to chase success, and he caught it, and it consumed him completely." Sarah knelt beside the wheelchair, taking Dorothy's cold hand in hers. "I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry for me, dear. Be sorry for him. He has everything and nothing at all." Dorothy squeezed Sarah's hand weakly. "You seem kind. Not many people are kind anymore. They're all too busy climbing, competing, conquering. Marcus is the worst of them. But he wasn't always like this. He used to be sweet." They sat in silence for several minutes. An elderly woman forgotten by her son, and a young mother forgotten by the world, connected by the random cruelty of a night shift and unlocked door. Finally, Sarah stood. "I should go, but can I come back, visit you?" Dorothy's eyes brightened. "Would you?" "Yes. I work here 5 nights a week. I could stop by." "I'd like that very much." Dorothy released the photograph, letting it rest in her lap. "What did you say your name was?" "Sarah. Sarah Collins." "Thank you, Sarah Collins, for seeing me. Most people look right through me now, like I'm already a ghost." Sarah understood that feeling intimately. As she returned to her cleaning cart, her mind churned with impossible thoughts. Marcus Thornfield had humiliated her, cost her job, represented everything wrong with unchecked wealth and privilege. But his mother was a waitress who sacrificed everything, just like Sarah sacrificed everything for Emma. And he'd abandoned her like yesterday's garbage. The documents in the Project Lighthouse file could destroy him. Sarah had the power now, the evidence, the motive, the righteous anger. But looking back at that closed door, at Dorothy Thornfield alone in the dark, Sarah realized something more complex than revenge was unfolding. This wasn't just about taking down a cruel billionaire. This was about a mother, a son, and the terrible distance that success could create between them. 3 nights later, Sarah returned to the 69th floor with something hidden in her bag, a thermos of homemade soup and a sleeve of saltine crackers. She told herself it was just human decency, that anyone would do the same for an elderly woman abandoned in a corporate medical facility. But the truth was more complicated. Dorothy Thornfield reminded Sarah of her own grandmother, The woman who'd raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 9. Grandma Rose had worked as a seamstress, her fingers bent and arthritic from decades of needlework. But her love had been boundless. She died 2 weeks before Sarah's Columbia graduation, never seeing her granddaughter walk across that stage. Sarah knocked softly before entering the wellness center. "Dorothy? It's Sarah." "Oh." Dorothy's face transformed from blank loneliness to genuine joy. "You came back. I thought perhaps I'd dreamed you." "No dream. I brought you something." Sarah pulled out the thermos. "Chicken soup, my grandmother's recipe. Nothing fancy, but it's warm." Dorothy's eyes glistened. "No one's made me homemade soup in, I can't remember how long." Her hands trembled as Sarah poured the steaming liquid into a paper cup. "The food here is nutritionally optimized, measured, calculated, completely tasteless." They sat together by the window overlooking the city lights. Dorothy sipped the soup slowly, making small sounds of contentment. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." "My grandmother always said soup was medicine for the soul," Sarah offered. "Your grandmother was wise." Dorothy set down the cup carefully. "Tell me about your daughter." "Emma, yes?" Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came whenever she talked about Emma with strangers. The defensive preparation for judgment, pity, or worse, unsolicited advice. But something about Dorothy's gentle expression made her lower those walls. "She's incredible. Born premature, diagnosed with hearing loss at 6 months. She wears hearing aids and we're working on sign language. She's so smart, Dorothy. So brave. She faces challenges every day that would break most adults, and she just smiles through it. She has a strong mother. Children mirror what they see." Dorothy reached for Sarah's hand. "You work 3 jobs for her?" "2 now. Lost one recently." Sarah didn't elaborate. The wound was still too fresh. "The work you do, cleaning these offices, it's honest work, important work. My son has forgotten that every empire is built on the backs of people like you and me. The invisible ones." Dorothy's expression darkened. "When did he last visit you?" The question caught Sarah off guard. "Marcus? I know it's been months. They tell me he's busy. International business, board meetings, charity galas." She laughed bitterly. "Charity. He'll write a check for $1 million to children he'll never meet but won't spend an hour with the woman who raised him." "Maybe he doesn't know how," Sarah suggested, surprising herself by defending him. "Some people bury themselves in work because they don't know how to process emotion. You're kinder than he deserves." Dorothy squeezed her hand. "Tell me, what did my son do to you?" Sarah's throat constricted. "What do you mean?" "I see it in your eyes when you say his name. Pain, anger. What did Marcus do?" The story spilled out. The restaurant, the humiliation, the firing. Sarah tried to keep it clinical, factual, but emotion crept through in her voice breaking, in the way her hands clenched. When she finished, Dorothy sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "I'm so sorry," Dorothy whispered. "I'm so deeply sorry. I raised him better than that. I taught him that everyone deserves dignity, that circumstances don't define worth. How did he become so cruel? It's not your fault. But it is. Somewhere I failed him. I pushed him so hard to succeed, to rise above our circumstances, that he forgot compassion was supposed to rise with him." Dorothy's whole body shook. "A waitress. He humiliated a waitress. After everything I sacrificed as a waitress to give him opportunity." Sarah knelt beside the wheelchair, wrapping her arms around the frail woman as she sobbed. They stayed like that for long minutes. 2 women wounded by the same man for entirely different reasons, finding unexpected solace in each other. "I need to tell you something," Sarah said finally, pulling back. "I found documents, financial records showing fraud in his company, hundreds of millions in hidden revenue. I took pictures." Dorothy's eyes widened. "What will you do with them?" "I don't know. I could send them to journalists, federal investigators. It would destroy him. He'd lose everything. His company, his reputation, possibly his freedom." Sarah met Dorothy's gaze. "Part of me wants that. Wants him to feel what it's like to lose everything in an instant. And the other part thinks about you, about how destroying him would hurt you too, and about Emma, about what kind of mother I want to be, the kind who teaches revenge, or the kind who teaches something better." Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. What if there was a third option? Not revenge, not mercy, but Correction. What if Marcus could see what he's become? Really see it? How? Men like him are surrounded by people telling them they're brilliant, visionary. Who's going to make him look in a mirror? You. Dorothy's voice gained strength. You have something he doesn't. Moral clarity born from real struggle. You've lost and rebuilt. He's only built higher walls around his empire. Bring Emma here. Let me meet her. Let Marcus see, if he ever bothers to visit, what real strength looks like. Dorothy, I can't involve my daughter in— Please. The word came out desperate. I'm dying, Sarah. The doctors don't say it directly, but I see it in their faces. My heart is failing. I have months, maybe weeks. Before I go, I need Marcus to understand what matters. And you and Emma, you represent everything I tried to teach him and everything he's forgotten. Sarah felt torn between self-preservation and compassion, between protecting Emma and honoring this woman's final wish. Let me think about it, she said finally. Over the following week, Sarah visited Dorothy every shift. She brought soup, crackers, books from the library. She told stories about Emma's latest adventures, how she'd insisted on wearing a superhero cape to school, how she'd taught herself to read lips by watching YouTube videos, how she signed, "I love you" in her sleep. Dorothy listened to every word with hungry attention, occasionally sharing memories of young Marcus, the boy who'd brought her dandelions and called them flowers, who'd written her poetry for Mother's Day, who'd promised to take care of her forever. What happened to that boy? Sarah asked one night. He learned that the world rewards hardness, that vulnerability is weakness, that emotion is unprofessional. Dorothy stared out the window. I watched it happen during his college years. He'd come home from Harvard, and each time he was a little colder, a little more distant. His friends were all children of CEOs and senators. They spoke a different language, one that didn't include words like struggle or sacrifice. By the time he graduated, I'd become an embarrassment. The waitress mother who didn't understand business strategy or market disruption. Did you ever confront him? Once, about 5 years ago. He'd just made his first 100 million. I told him success without compassion was just expensive cruelty. He said I was being emotional and irrational, that I didn't understand how modern business worked. That was the last real conversation we had. After that, it was just polite distance. Then he put me here, the ultimate solution. Expensive care that looks like love, but feels like exile. Sarah made her decision. I'll bring Emma. This Sunday during the day. We'll visit you properly. Dorothy's entire face illuminated. Thank you. Oh, thank you. But Dorothy, if Marcus does come, let me handle my son. You just bring that beautiful girl, and let an old woman remember what real wealth looks like. As Sarah left that night, she passed a framed photograph in the wellness center hallway. Marcus Thornfield at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, smiling his perfect corporate smile, surrounded by politicians and press. The caption read, Thornfield Industries commits $50 million to education reform. $50 million for strangers. 0 minutes for the woman who'd given him everything. Sarah photographed the image and sent it to Dorothy's phone with a message. Real charity begins at home. Dorothy replied immediately, You're teaching me hope again. See you Sunday. Sunday afternoon, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the wellness center, transforming the sterile medical space into something almost warm. Sarah held Emma's hand as they stepped off the elevator on the 69th floor, her daughter's eyes wide with wonder at the towering building. Mama, is this where you work? Emma signed, her small hands moving with practiced precision. Yes, baby. We're visiting a friend of mine, Sarah signed back. Dorothy sat by the window in a pale blue dress. The nicest she owned, Sarah would later learn. Her white hair freshly styled, her face alight with anticipation. When Emma entered, Dorothy pressed both hands to her chest, her eyes immediately welling with tears. Oh my, she whispered. Oh, she's perfect. Emma, never shy, walked directly to Dorothy and signed, Hello, I'm Emma. Are you sick? Sarah started to intervene, but Dorothy laughed, a sound of pure delight. I don't understand sign language, sweetheart, but I like you already. Sarah translated, and Dorothy reached for Emma's hands. I'm old, which is different from sick. But you know what? You make me feel young again just by being here. For 2 hours they talked and played. Emma showed Dorothy her drawings, elaborate, colorful scenes of superheroes and dolphins. Dorothy told stories of young Marcus, carefully editing out the pain, focusing on the sweet boy he'd been. Emma sat in Dorothy's lap, something she rarely did with strangers, and Dorothy held her like she was made of precious glass. Sarah photographed the moment on her phone, Emma signing animatedly while Dorothy watched with wonder, both of them backlit by golden afternoon sun. It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It was everything Marcus Thornfield had abandoned in his pursuit of empire. "Can we come back next week?" Emma signed. "Absolutely," Sarah confirmed, seeing the joy on Dorothy's face. As they prepared to leave, Dorothy pulled Sarah aside, while Emma explored the examination room equipment with supervised curiosity. "Thank you," Dorothy said, gripping Sarah's hands. "You've given me the greatest gift, but now I need to ask something difficult." "What is it?" "I need you to contact Marcus. Tell him I'm dying, really dying. The doctors confirmed this week. Heart failure. Maybe 3 weeks left, possibly less." Her voice remained steady despite the devastating news. "He won't take my calls. His assistant intercepts everything. But you have something he needs to see." "Dorothy, I can't just—" "The documents you found, the fraud. You have leverage. Use it. Not to destroy him, but to bring him here. One final time. Let me try to reach whatever humanity he has left." Dorothy's grip tightened. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to tell my son goodbye and maybe, remind him who he was before he became what he is." Sarah felt the weight of the request. "If I contact him with those documents, he could have me arrested. Blackmail, corporate espionage. He has lawyers who would bury me." "Then don't blackmail him. Just tell him the truth. Tell him his mother is dying, and a stranger has shown her more kindness in 2 weeks than he has in 5 years. Appeal to whatever conscience he might have buried under his success. And if he doesn't care, then at least I'll know. At least I can stop hoping and start accepting." Dorothy released Sarah's hands. "But I think there's still something human in him. It's just trapped under layers of ambition and fear. You survived humiliation and loss and kept your humanity. Maybe you can help him find his." That night, after putting Emma to bed, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with her laptop and phone, staring at the screen. Marcus Thornfield's contact information wasn't difficult to find. Corporate directories, LinkedIn, even a direct email for urgent business matters. She drafted 7 different messages, deleting each one. Too aggressive, too passive, too emotional, too clinical. Finally, at 11:47 p.m., exhausted and running on desperation, she wrote, "Subject, Dorothy Thornfield. Urgent. Mr. Thornfield, you don't know me, but I know your mother. I'm a cleaning crew worker at Thornfield Tower, and for the past 2 weeks, I've been visiting Dorothy in your wellness center. She's dying. The doctors give her 3 weeks. Your mother was a waitress for 23 years. She worked herself to exhaustion to give you opportunities. She tells me you used to bring her dandelions and write her poetry. She wonders what happened to that boy. I have a 7-year-old daughter with hearing loss. I work multiple jobs to give her a decent life. Your mother and I understand each other. We're both mothers who sacrifice everything for children who will hopefully have better lives than we did. But here's what your mother doesn't know, and what I need to tell you. 2 weeks ago, at the Golden Spire restaurant, you humiliated me in front of dozens of people. You told me I'd always be poor because of my choices. You got me fired. You represent everything I've learned to survive in this world. Casual cruelty from people with power. I found documents in your building, Project Lighthouse, fraud, tax evasion. Enough to destroy your empire. I photographed everything. I could destroy you like you destroyed me. I have journalists' contacts, federal investigators. I could make you feel what it's like to lose everything in an instant. But your mother asked me not to. Instead, she asked me to tell you that she's dying and wants to see you. One last time. Not the CEO, not the billionaire. Just Marcus, her son, the boy who used to count her tips and promised to buy her a big house someday. You have 3 weeks, maybe less, to decide what kind of man you really are. The kind who visits his dying mother, or the kind who lets her die alone surrounded by medical equipment instead of family. I'll be at the wellness center every night this week during my shift, 10 p.m., 6 a.m. If you come, bring your humanity. Leave your arrogance at the door. Your mother deserves that much. If you don't come, I'll make my own decisions about those documents. The choice is yours. Sarah Collins. Her finger hovered over the send button for a full minute. This was reckless, dangerous, possibly illegal. Marcus Thornfield could have her arrested, deported if she'd been an immigrant, blacklisted from every job in the city. But Dorothy's face, that hope mixed with resignation, haunted her. Emma's voice echoed in her memory from bedtime. "Mama, why do some people have so much and others so little?" Sarah had answered honestly. "Because people with much forget they once had little, and they forget to be kind." She pressed send. The email whooshed into the void. Sarah closed her laptop and walked to Emma's room, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, her hearing aids on the nightstand, her chest rising and falling with innocent trust that the world was fundamentally good. "I'm trying to teach her right from wrong," Sarah whispered to the darkness. "I hope I'm not teaching her to be a fool." Her phone buzzed at 1:33 a.m. An unknown number, a text message. "You have no idea what you've just started. MT. Sarah's heart hammered. She typed back, "Neither do you." 3 minutes passed. Then, "Wednesday night, 11 p.m., Wellness Center. Come alone. Tell no one." Sarah responded, "I'll be there. So will your mother's hope. Try not to destroy it." No response came. Sarah lay awake until dawn, wondering if she'd just saved Dorothy's last wish or signed her own destruction. The document sat encrypted on her phone, a nuclear option she prayed she wouldn't need to use. In 3 days she would face Marcus Thornfield, not as a powerless waitress, but as a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The real question wasn't whether he would show up. It was whether the man who appeared would be the cruel CEO who'd destroyed her, or the lost boy his mother still believed existed somewhere beneath the expensive suits and corporate armor. Wednesday night arrived heavy with tension. Sarah completed her cleaning rounds mechanically, her mind elsewhere, her stomach twisted in knots. At 10:47 p.m., she made her way to the Wellness Center, where Dorothy waited in her wheelchair, dressed carefully, her hands trembling with anticipation and fear. "He's coming?" Dorothy asked for the 3rd time. "He said he would." Sarah knelt beside her, taking her cold hands. "But Dorothy, prepare yourself. The Marcus who comes tonight might not be the son you remember." "I know, but I have to try. One last time." At exactly 11 p.m., the elevator chimed. Marcus Thornfield stepped into the Wellness Center, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly rent, his gray eyes scanning the room with predatory assessment before landing on Sarah. Recognition flickered across his face. Confusion, then realization, then cold fury. "You." The word came out like an accusation. "The waitress." "The cleaning lady now, actually," Sarah responded, standing her ground. "Thanks to you. You threatened me. Corporate espionage. Blackmail. I could have you arrested." His voice was controlled, dangerous. "I should have you arrested." "Marcus." Dorothy's voice, weak but insistent, cut through the tension. "Please." He turned toward his mother, and for a fraction of a second, Sarah saw something crack in his expression. Pain, guilt, longing, before the corporate mask reasserted itself. "Mother, you look well. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not when we have so little time left." Dorothy's voice gained unexpected strength. "Sit down, Marcus. We need to talk. I don't have much time. Board meeting in the morning. International call with Tokyo at 6 a.m. I'm dying." The words stopped him mid-sentence. 3 weeks, maybe less. My heart is failing. So your schedule, your meetings, your calls, they can wait 30 minutes for your mother. Marcus stood frozen, his jaw working, his hands clenched at his sides. Finally, he moved to a chair, sitting with rigid posture, his entire body language screaming discomfort. An awkward silence filled the room. Sarah moved toward the door. "I'll give you privacy." "Stay." Dorothy's command surprised them both. "You're part of this conversation." "Mother, I don't know what this woman has told you, but she told me you humiliated her at the Golden Spire, called her poor, got her fired, destroyed her livelihood in front of dozens of people." Dorothy's eyes, watery but sharp, fixed on her son. "Is it true?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "That's taken out of context. It was a business dinner. Her service was inadequate. She ran your card correctly. It was declined because you're so wealthy you don't notice when payment issues occur." Sarah's voice was steady, controlled. "But instead of handling it with dignity, you made it about my worth as a human being. You told me I'd always be poor because of my choices. You made my struggle into your entertainment. I was frustrated. The card situation was embarrassing. So you transferred your embarrassment onto someone with no power to defend herself." Dorothy's disappointment was palpable. Marcus, I raised you better than that. I taught you that everyone deserves dignity, that circumstances don't define character. What happened to you? What happened? Marcus stood abruptly, his control fracturing. I succeeded, Mother. I built an empire. I revolutionized sustainable technology. I employ 15,000 people. I've donated hundreds of millions to charity. I've done everything you wanted, given you everything you could need. Except yourself. Dorothy's words landed like stones. You gave me money, medical care, this beautiful prison, but you haven't given me a real conversation in 5 years. You haven't visited more than twice in 6 months. You've given me everything except what I actually need, my son. I've been building something important, creating legacy, changing the world, while ignoring the woman who gave you the world to begin with. Sarah couldn't stay silent anymore. Your mother was a waitress for 23 years, just like I was. She sacrificed sleep, health, dignity to give you opportunities. And you repay her by forgetting she exists? Marcus turned on Sarah, his gray eyes blazing. You don't understand the pressure, the expectations, the weight of running a corporation. Every decision affects thousands of people. I can't afford to be soft. I can't afford to be emotional. The business world rewards strength, decisiveness, ruthlessness. It rewards sociopathy, Sarah interrupted. It rewards people who can dehumanize others without guilt. Congratulations, Mr. Thornfield. You've succeeded at becoming exactly what the system wanted. Someone who values profit over people, including your own mother. How dare you judge me? You know nothing about my life, my sacrifices. Your sacrifices? Sarah's voice rose despite her intention to stay calm. You sacrificed what? Time with your mother? Basic human decency? I sacrifice sleep to work 3 jobs. I sacrifice new clothes so my daughter can have therapy. I sacrifice any personal life so Emma can have hearing aids and speech development. Those are sacrifices. Yours are just convenient excuses for cruelty. Marcus. Dorothy's voice stopped the escalating argument. Look at me. Really look at me. He turned, and this time he couldn't hide behind his corporate armor. He saw his mother, truly saw her, frail, dying, desperate for connection. Do you remember what you told me when you were 10 years old? Dorothy asked softly. After that boy at school made fun of you because your mother was just a waitress? You came home crying, and I held you, and you said, when I'm rich, I'm going to make sure nobody ever makes fun of waitresses again. I'm going to make sure they're treated with respect. Marcus's face paled. I don't remember that. I do. I remember every promise you made, every dream you shared, every time you told me you'd never forget where you came from. Tears streamed down Dorothy's weathered face. And I watched you break every single one of those promises. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but slowly, year by year, success by success, until the boy I raised disappeared completely. The silence that followed was suffocating. Marcus sank back into the chair, his head in his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. I don't know how to be that boy anymore, he whispered. I don't know if he even exists. He does. Sarah surprised herself by moving closer. He exists in every choice you make, in whether you apologize or justify, in whether you visit your dying mother or bury yourself in work, in whether you use your power to lift people up or tear them down. She pulled out her phone, showed him one of the Project Lighthouse documents. I found this. Fraud, tax evasion. Enough to destroy everything you've built. I could send this to the SEC, the FBI, every journalist in New York. I could watch your empire crumble like you watched my livelihood disappear. Marcus stared at the screen, his face ashen. But I won't, Sarah continued. Not because you deserve mercy, because your mother asked me not to. Because she still believes in you despite every reason not to. Because she's teaching me that redemption is always possible if someone has the courage to choose it. She deleted the photos from her phone, one by one, in front of him. There, gone. Your secret is safe. Your empire is secure. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to visit your mother every single day for the next 3 weeks. You're going to talk to her. Really talk. Not about business or markets or deals. About life. About memories. About forgiveness. You're going to be her son, not Marcus Thornfield, CEO. Just Marcus. And if I don't? His voice was barely audible. Then you'll live with knowing you let your mother die surrounded by medical equipment instead of love. And that knowledge will hollow you out far more effectively than any prison sentence ever could. Dorothy reached out a trembling hand. Marcus, please. I don't need your money. I don't need your success. I just need you. While there's still time. Marcus looked at his mother, at Sarah, at the life he'd built and the humanity he'd lost. For a long moment, Sarah thought he would stand up, make an excuse, disappear back into his empire. Instead, he moved to his mother's wheelchair, knelt before her, and broke down completely. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry, Mom. I forgot. I forgot everything that mattered. I forgot you. I forgot kindness. I forgot myself. Dorothy wrapped her arms around her son, stroking his hair like she had when he was young. It's okay, baby. You're here now. That's what matters. You're here. Sarah quietly moved toward the door, giving them privacy. Wait, Marcus called out, his voice thick with emotion. He stood, walked to Sarah, and for the first time since she'd known of his existence, looked at her with genuine humanity. I'm sorry. For everything. For the restaurant, for getting you fired, for every cruel word. You were right about me. About all of it. I have no excuse. I am exactly what you said. But I want to change. If it's not too late. Sarah studied him carefully. Words are easy, Mr. Thornfield. Let's see what your actions say. He nodded, accepting the challenge. Fair enough. As Sarah left the wellness center that night, she heard something she'd never expected. Marcus Thornfield laughing, really laughing, at a story his mother was telling about his childhood. The sound followed her all the way to the elevator, a fragile note of hope in a building that had only known ambition and cold efficiency. Maybe, just maybe, the boy who'd counted tips and brought his mother dandelions wasn't completely gone. Maybe he'd just been waiting for someone to remind him he existed. 3 weeks felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat. True to his word, Marcus Thornfield appeared at the wellness center every evening. At first, the visits were stilted, awkward. A powerful CEO sitting uncomfortably beside his dying mother, struggling to find words that weren't about quarterly earnings or market disruption. But slowly, something shifted. Sarah watched it happen during her nightly cleaning rounds. She'd pass by the wellness center and see them. Marcus reading aloud from Dorothy's favorite book, their hands clasped together. Marcus showing his mother photos on his tablet, not of board meetings, but of his childhood home, old neighbors, the diner where she'd worked. Marcus crying as Dorothy shared stories he'd forgotten or never fully understood. On the 8th night, Sarah entered to find Emma sitting in Dorothy's lap while Marcus demonstrated magic tricks. Clumsy, unpracticed, but earnest. Emma giggled soundlessly, her hands signing, "Again, again," while Dorothy translated and Marcus obliged, his expensive suit jacket discarded, his tie loosened, looking more human than Sarah had ever seen him. "She's teaching me sign language," Marcus told Sarah, his voice carrying wonder. "Basic phrases. Emma's a patient teacher. Better teacher than student," Emma signed with 7-year-old sass, making Dorothy laugh until she coughed. The cough grew worse over the following days. Dorothy's lucid moments became shorter, her strength fading visibly. The doctors increased morphine, spoke in hushed tones about making her comfortable. On the 17th night, Dorothy asked to see Sarah and Marcus together. They sat on either side of her wheelchair, the city lights twinkling 70 floors below, casting long shadows across the medical equipment that had become Dorothy's final landscape. "I need to say something while I still can," Dorothy began, her voice barely above a whisper. "To both of you." Sarah took her left hand. Marcus held her right. "Sarah, you saved my son's life. Not by exposing his crimes or destroying his empire, but by showing him what real strength looks like. You could have chosen revenge. You chose redemption. You taught him, taught me, that compassion isn't weakness. It's the hardest, bravest choice anyone can make." "Dorothy, let me finish." Dorothy squeezed weakly. "You remind me of myself at your age, fighting for your child, sacrificing everything. But you have something I lost along the way. You never let struggle make you bitter. You stayed soft in a hard world. That's a superpower, Sarah. Don't ever forget it." She turned to Marcus. "And you, my brilliant boy, you're finally becoming the man I always knew you could be. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, Just Marcus, kind, thoughtful, present. But this can't end with me. Promise me you'll remember what these weeks taught you. Promise me you'll use your power differently. I promise, Mom. Marcus's voice cracked. I promise everything's going to change. Good. Dorothy smiled, peaceful despite her pain. Now I need you both to do something for me. Something important. Anything, they said simultaneously. Take care of each other. Sarah, my son is going to stumble. He's going to forget occasionally, slip back into old patterns. Remind him who he is. Hold him accountable. She turned to Marcus. And you, Sarah and Emma, need help. Real help. Not charity. Not pity. Opportunity. Give them what I gave you. A chance to rise as high as their talents can take them. Can you both promise me that? Sarah wanted to protest. She didn't need charity, didn't want anything from Marcus Thornfield. But Dorothy's pleading eyes stopped her. I promise, Sarah said softly. I promise, Marcus echoed. Dorothy closed her eyes, exhausted. Good. That's good. Now I can rest. She died 3 days later, on a Sunday morning, with Marcus holding one hand and Sarah holding the other. Emma stood nearby, her small hand on Dorothy's arm, not fully understanding death but understanding loss. Dorothy's last words were to Marcus. I'm proud of you, finally. The funeral was small, Marcus's choice. No corporate executives, no politicians, no press. Just a handful of people who'd actually known Dorothy Thornfield, the person, not Dorothy Thornfield, the billionaire's mother. Sarah attended with Emma, standing in the back of the church. Marcus spotted them, walked over, and without a word, guided them to the front row, where family sat. During the eulogy, Marcus spoke not about his achievements or his mother's sacrifices, but about the past 3 weeks, about rediscovering humanity, about a cleaning lady who'd shown him what his billions couldn't buy. Integrity, compassion, redemption. My mother spent 23 years as a waitress, Marcus said, his voice echoing through the church. I spent years being ashamed of that. But she taught me, through a stranger who became a friend, that honest work has more dignity than corrupt wealth, that poverty of character is worse than poverty of circumstance, that the person scrubbing floors might have more wisdom than the person sitting in the corner office. He looked directly at Sarah. She taught me that the question isn't, how much do you have, but what do you do with what you have? And I've been doing it wrong for a very long time. After the service, Marcus approached Sarah on the church steps. I need to talk to you, please. Just a few minutes. They walked to a nearby park, Emma running ahead to play on the swings while they sat on a bench. I'm restructuring Thornfield Industries, Marcus began, creating a new division focused on worker equity, living wages, profit sharing for all employees. It'll cost the company millions in the short term. The board is furious. I don't care. That's good, Sarah said cautiously. I'm also establishing the Dorothy Thornfield Foundation. Scholarships for single parents pursuing education, childcare subsidies, medical assistance for children with disabilities. Real help, not token charity. He pulled out an envelope. Which brings me to you. Marcus, I don't want your money. It's not money. It's opportunity. He handed her the envelope. Inside is a full scholarship to complete your MBA at Columbia. All expenses covered, including childcare for Emma, medical costs, housing stipend. Everything you need to finish what you started 7 years ago. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a formal acceptance letter from Columbia Business School, a childcare contract with a specialized center for children with hearing impairments, and a stipend agreement that would cover every expense she could imagine. I can't accept this, she whispered, even as tears streamed down her face. Yes, you can. It's not charity, Sarah. It's justice. You should have never had to choose between your education and your daughter. The system failed you. I failed you. This is a small step toward making it right. But there's one condition. Marcus's expression grew serious. When you finish your MBA, I want you to join Thornfield Industries. Not as an employee, as a board member and head of the Worker Equity Division. I need someone who actually understands what it's like to struggle, to sacrifice, to fight for every inch. I need someone who will hold me accountable when I start slipping back into old patterns. I need you. Sarah stared at him, speechless. My mother's last wish was for us to take care of each other, Marcus continued, for me to give you opportunity, for you to keep me human. I'm offering you both. What do you say? Sarah watched Emma on the swings, laughing soundlessly, her hair catching sunlight, completely unaware that her mother's life, their lives, were about to transform completely. She thought about Dorothy, about redemption, about the power of second chances. I say yes, Sarah finally answered, but I have conditions too. Name them. You visit the wellness center every month. You talk to the cleaning staff, the security guards, the people who make this empire function. You remember their names. You see them. Done. You fund therapy programs for children with hearing impairments. Real funding, not just a token donation. Consider it done. And you never, ever forget that the person serving you coffee or cleaning your office might be the smartest person in the building. They're just trapped in circumstances that don't reflect their worth. Marcus extended his hand. You have my word. All of it. They shook hands. The cleaning lady and the CEO, the single mother and the billionaire. Two people who'd been enemies and became something stranger. Allies in the fight for a more human version of success. 2 years later, Sarah Collins walked across the stage at Columbia University, receiving her MBA with honors. Emma sat in the front row, her hearing aids decorated with sparkly stickers, signing, "That's my mama," with fierce pride. Marcus Thornfield sat 3 rows back, applauding alongside hundreds of other guests. When Sarah's name was called, he stood, leading a standing ovation that filled the auditorium. After the ceremony, Sarah found him outside. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything, for changing, for keeping your promise." "Thank you," Marcus replied, "for saving my life, for reminding me that wealth without humanity is just expensive emptiness. My mother would be proud of both of us." "She would be," Sarah agreed, smiling. As they walked toward the reception, Emma between them holding both their hands, Sarah thought about that night at the Golden Spire, the humiliation, the anger, the moment that had seemed like an ending but was actually a beginning. She'd learned that redemption wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about transforming it into something better. She'd learned that true wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with character, compassion, and the courage to choose kindness over cruelty. And she'd learned that sometimes the poorest person in the room is the one who's forgotten how to be human, and the richest person is the one who never forgets. Marcus Thornfield had lost his mother, but found his humanity. Sarah Collins had lost a job, but found her future. And Emma, beautiful, resilient Emma, gained a world that was just a little bit kinder than the one she'd been born into. That, Sarah thought, was the best kind of wealth anyone could create. The end.